chosen one. Something has just entered the world that cannot be undone because a person of high stature in the community has been outed. Everyone knows what they did, and the video leaked. This individual, once a figure of deep trust who commanded every room, is now watching their manufactured reputation dissolve as the truth goes everywhere. The shock spreading through your community is the realization that their entire persona was a construction, but for you, this is the moment your struggle finally makes sense. As the ceiling that once blocked your progress shatters along with their influence, you must realize that this new world being born was made specifically for you to thrive. Let us begin before the scandal, before the video, before any of this cracked open. Let us begin with you. You have always carried something. You felt it early, maybe in childhood, maybe later, but the sense was always present. Something inside you was bigger than your current circumstances could contain. Not arrogance, not delusion, a knowing, a pressure building from the inside, like a force searching for the right container. That thing you carry is the dragon, and before you understand anything else about what happened, you need to understand that the dragon is the precise reason everything happened. The trials that find chosen ones are not random. They are not bad luck. They are not the result of an indifferent universe misfiring. They are specific, targeted, calibrated to the exact size and shape of the gift inside you, because the gift is what makes you a target, not your weakness, your power. This person of high stature saw the dragon before you fully claimed it, and they made a deliberate, strategic, patient decision. They would rather have you limited than have you free. Hold that. Everything that follows leads back to that single decision. Here is what you need to understand about the nature of your gift specifically. Talented people are manageable. Talent can be channeled, redirected, labeled and deployed for someone else's purposes. What you carry is different. It is the kind of knowing that does not need external validation to stay alive. It is the kind of authenticity that simply by existing in proximity to performance makes the performance visible. You were a mirror this person could not afford. Every time you showed up fully, the gap between what was genuine and what was being performed became legible to anyone paying attention, not because you were trying to expose anyone, but because that is simply what genuine presence does to an environment built on illusion. The choice was made: bring you inside the performance and assign you a role that kept you managed. When the dragon refused the cage, the second option was activated: make the conditions of your life difficult enough that your energy stayed perpetually occupied elsewhere. What is worth understanding about that refusal is this: most people, when the pressure becomes uncomfortable enough, adjust. They soften an edge, they quiet a conviction, they trade something true about themselves for something easier. The system this person built was designed around that predictable human tendency toward self-preservation through accommodation. You did not accommodate, and that single fact, your quiet, persistent refusal to shrink on command, is the most significant thing you did throughout this entire period. You did not do it loudly. You probably did not even do it consciously. Your dragon simply would not bend, would not perform a smallness it did not feel, would not pretend that what was wrong was right, just to make the environment more comfortable. That refusal accumulated, day by day, into something that no amount of external pressure could neutralize. The dragon was always going to wake up. The only question was when. You cannot understand what happened to you without understanding the environment that was deliberately built around you. This person did not stumble into power. Every brick was placed intentionally, and every brick was made of the same material, the genuine trust of people who genuinely believed. The foundation of every long con is safety. When people feel safe, they open, they give. They stop measuring the gap between what they are being told and what they are actually experiencing. This person was extraordinary at manufacturing that feeling, and manufacturing is the precise word, because it was never organic. The community that formed around this figure looked real because the people in it were real. The need they brought was real. The hope they invested was real. What was not real was the person at the center receiving all of it. Behind the warmth, a system was running with a singular purpose: to identify, absorb, and redirect the gifts of everyone who arrived. New people, especially those carrying genuine capacity, genuine insight, genuine light, were registered immediately. The process would begin without announcement. Get close, learn the need, offer the thing that fills it, and in the offering, gain access to the gifts, to the network, to the energy. Most people never recognized the extraction because it felt like being loved. The control felt like care. That is the sophistication of it, and that sophistication is exactly what made it so hard to name while it was happening. If this touched your heart and mind, hype this video so more chosen ones can receive this message. There was always an inner circle. That inner circle was not selected by merit or depth of character. It was selected by usefulness, who had the widest reach, who had the deepest resources, and critically, who had something to lose that could guarantee their silence. The inner circle was not a seat of honor. It was a leash dressed as a crown. There was also something this person did with information that deserves direct naming: personal disclosures, the fears, the old wounds, the private failures shared in vulnerable moments were not received and released. They were stored, filed, held as future leverage. The intimacy being offered was not intimacy. It was reconnaissance. Every tender thing you shared was being catalogued so that when the time came, it could be repackaged and deployed against you. If you ever felt the eerie sensation of your own private truth surfacing from a direction you could not trace, you were not paranoid. That was the system working exactly as designed. You felt something was off. Your dragon knew. Your dragon has always known. Here is where everything lands in your actual life. The interference did not arrive loudly. Sophisticated predators do not announce themselves. They introduce friction, small, deniable, almost explainable friction. A key relationship in your life suddenly became complicated for no clear reason. A financial situation stopped making sense. Creative work kept hitting walls with no logical source. You started losing sleep, not dramatically, just enough to dull your edge, just enough to keep your energy perpetually depleted. You would rest and wake exhausted. You would push forward and find the pushing far harder than it used to be. And then the thought arrived, the perfectly placed, insidious thought: maybe it is me. That thought was the real weapon. The moment you turned the lens from outward to inward, you stopped looking at the actual source of the friction. You started managing your own doubt instead of building your own destiny. And every moment spent in that internal loop was a moment your gift stayed on hold, while the operation against you kept running unchallenged. Destruction was never the goal. Redirection was. Keep your attention inward, downward, and away from the rising that was your actual assignment. Chosen ones, they never expected this, and they really didn't expect us to keep talking. You've noticed it. Chosen one channels disappearing, videos pulled, voices scrubbed from the platform. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice, and now we have something they truly can't silence. The technology used to suppress consciousness has been reverse-engineered, and Destiny Engine is the result. What was once used against humanity is now your ascension weapon. Join Destiny Engine, and you're supporting your favorite channels while leveling up yourself at the same time. It's a 360 win. You can now MK Ultra yourself into 5D superpowers. Destiny Engine bypasses the conscious mind and rewrites the source code directly. Reality bends faster. Synchronicities stack. Your nervous system upgrades to a higher bandwidth. Put on headphones. Press play. That's all. You switch sides of history. Click the link in the description. The takeover is internal. Ronta. Here is what will reorganize your understanding of that period. Think about when the interference was heaviest, when the resistance felt most total and most inexplicable. Now think about what was developing in you at that same time. What capacity were you on the edge of claiming? What influence was just beginning to form? What connection was about to open? The interference was never random, it was responsive. Every time you made a meaningful move toward your purpose, the pressure increased as a direct response. Someone was tracking the distance between you and your full activation, and every time that distance closed, the operation intensified. That is not paranoia. That is pattern recognition, and your ability to see that pattern now, to look back at your own history and identify the shape of what was operating, is itself proof that the dragon was never fully put down. You were reading the situation correctly the whole time. You simply did not yet have the full picture to confirm what you were reading. You have it now. What everyone is discussing on the surface, the video, the immediate revelation, the public unraveling, is not even the deepest layer of what is here. There is a secret beneath the secret. Before this person became the beloved figure at the center of your community, agreements were made, long before the applause, long before the following. In private settings with no witnesses and no record, something was traded. Authenticity was exchanged for access. The truest part of who they were was surrendered in exchange for the resources required to build a performance convincing enough that no one would go looking for what was missing. Those agreements came with ongoing conditions. The public face, the community, the authority, the trusted name was a storefront. The actual operation ran behind it. Money moved in directions that the community's contributions cannot explain. Connections existed to people and institutions that a genuine leader would have no use for. The vulnerability of others was not received with care. It was catalogued as a resource, and beneath even that, harm was done to those with the least power to object, not through carelessness, but through deliberate design as a built-in function of the system. Here is what made your position specifically dangerous to this person. The operation required active cover, not just secrecy, but a community emotionally invested enough in the image that it would defend the image against any threat. Emotionally invested people do not scrutinize, they protect. So dependency was cultivated deliberately, and dependency, once established, turns passive followers into active defenders against the very truth that could free them. This is why, when you felt the wrongness and perhaps tried to name it, nothing moved in your favor, or worse, the situation moved against you. The community's response was aimed at the one raising the question, rather than the one who deserved scrutiny. That response had been engineered in advance. Questioning had been reframed as disloyalty, and disloyalty had been coded as an attack on something sacred. You were not wrong, you were not unstable, you were neutralized because you were accurate. There is a significant difference between those two things. One says something about you, the other says everything about who was threatened by you. You were the alarm they needed to silence. Of course they came for you. This is the part where the antagonist overplays their hand, where the operation that was supposed to stay invisible becomes ambitious, and where the attempt to contain you becomes the very thing that begins to expose them. The places in your life where your gifts were most active became targets. Your close relationships, specifically the ones where you were most known and most held, your financial stability, your creative output, your physical well-being. The goal was not targeted damage in one area. The goal was full-spectrum destabilization. If the ground beneath your life felt uncertain enough, all your energy would pour into stabilizing your own foundation rather than building anything new, and for a while it worked. Not completely, not permanently, but you felt it. The periods where nothing would move, no matter what you did, the opportunities that appeared and then dissolved, the sense of being on the edge of something real and then finding yourself back at the beginning, a body that would not cooperate with your will. That was not bad luck. That was an operation. Something specific was also deployed against your name. A narrative, not through direct confrontation, because that would be too visible and too traceable. Instead, through the careful, patient placement of a particular framing in the right conversations. A version of you that made your gifts look like instability, that made your discernment look like paranoia, that made your refusal to perform unconditional loyalty look like untrustworthiness. That narrative was not invented from nothing. It was built from you, from the things you had shared in trust, your history, your wounds, your most tender places, and then repackaged as evidence of your unreliability. The intimacy offered at the beginning was reconnaissance. The vulnerabilities you shared in safety were being stored as ammunition. This was someone who studied you before moving against you. The precision of the targeting is itself the confession. Here is the fatal miscalculation, though. The binding does not destroy the gift, it compresses it, and compressed energy held under sustained pressure does not weaken, it intensifies. It becomes harder, denser. When it finally releases, it releases with a force that nobody, including you, fully anticipated. Every obstacle placed in your path was a weight you were lifting without knowing it. Every manufactured crisis was a problem your mind learned to solve. Every engineered difficulty was a fire you learned to walk through. All of it was building something that no amount of external resource could manufacture. You were becoming diamond. The people trying to contain you were the ones doing the polishing. The dragon they tried to bind was getting stronger with every single day they held it down. Someone was watching, documenting, waiting. That person, or those people, because it is rarely just one, had been paying attention for a long time. Maybe an insider, maybe someone adjacent to the operation, maybe one of the people who had been used and quietly decided the use was going to carry consequences. Whatever the origin, something was recorded that was never supposed to be recorded. Something was preserved that was supposed to disappear. Something this person of high stature was certain had been buried deep enough, surfaced anyway. And the moment it landed publicly, you could feel the atmospheric shift. There is a particular quality to the air when a long deception is exposed at scale. Everything that was held in the pressure of years, the unasked questions, the suppressed knowing, the things people felt but had no permission to say, comes through all at once. The video spread not because of shock value, but because of recognition. People across different circles watched and felt something in the footage, matched something they had personally experienced. A tone, a behavioral pattern, a specific dynamic they had lived inside without ever having language for it. The footage gave them the language, and once you have language for something you have been living through wordlessly, the need to speak becomes unstoppable. Watch how this person responds or does not respond. Genuine innocence produces a specific reaction, the desire for full transparency, because directness is the only tool that works when the accusation is false. Managed exposure produces something entirely different: vagueness, carefully worded statements designed for maximum deniability, a sudden emphasis on past contributions and community standing, rather than direct engagement with the specific content of what came out. Watch the inner circle as well. The ones going quiet are not processing privately. The ones suddenly posting about patience, nuance, and not rushing to judgment are not genuinely reflecting. Those are people calculating fast, assessing how much of what they know is about to become relevant, and to whom the first revelation always opens the door to more. Truth, once it begins moving, does not move alone. Here is where the collapse becomes visible in real time. The moment this person understood the narrative was beyond containment, the scramble began. Every contact was worked, every favor was called in, every relationship built on obligation was tested to see whether that obligation could hold under this kind of weight. Most of it did not hold. What was discovered, and this is the pivot point of the entire situation, is that the loyalty this person believed they had purchased was never loyalty at all. It was compliance. Compliance and loyalty are entirely different things. Loyalty is relational. It persists through difficulty. Compliance is transactional. It lasts exactly as long as the power behind it lasts. The moment the power wavers, compliance evaporates overnight. Debts were called in and found already gone. Influence was reached for and found already migrated elsewhere. The counter-narrative being assembled found no one willing to amplify it the way they once would have without question. The attempt to get the account straight is failing because no single coherent account exists. The operation was deliberately compartmentalized, different people knew different pieces, and no single person was ever supposed to hold the full picture. That compartmentalization was a deliberate feature. But now that scrutiny is active, compartments do not hold. The person who knew one piece is talking to the person who knew another, and the picture forming is far larger and far more complete than any individual piece suggested on its own. Watch for the next move as well, because it is predictable. When denial stops working and the spin collapses, the pivot arrives. The responsibility begins shifting toward a companion, an associate, a partner, now being repositioned as the true architect of everything that went wrong. This person was kept inside the operation precisely because, when necessary, that proximity could serve as the exit strategy. What this tells you about character is direct and permanent. Even in the moment of full accountability, the instinct is not truth. The instinct is redirection. That instinct, visible for the first time without any costume over it, is the most honest thing this person has ever shown the public. What currently sits in the wreckage of everything it constructed knows, fully knows, that every brick was placed by its own hand. The departure is happening now, not as a trickle, but as a flood. The scale of the exodus is proportional to the depth of the investment. These are not peripheral observers detaching casually. These are people who restructured significant portions of their lives around what this person told them was true, who gave resources, time, and sacred trust, who defended this figure publicly, sometimes at real cost to their own standing. All of that investment is now in question, not just the figure at the center, but the judgment that led people to extend trust to that figure in the first place. You need to see what is happening underneath the departure, because it is directly connected to where you are going. Some of those leaving are walking away, carrying something new, not just disillusionment, clarity. For the first time in a long time, they are reviewing their own history with this person without the filter the performance provided. They are recognizing moments they explained away, feelings they overrode, internal alarms they were trained to dismiss as disloyalty. Those alarms are being rehabilitated right now. The very discernment this person worked to suppress in everyone around them is coming back online, and a community with reactivated discernment is not a broken community, it is a rebuilding one. It has been vaccinated in the hardest way possible against this exact flavor of manipulation. There is grief in this, real grief, the kind that comes not just from losing a person, but from losing a version of your own perception. Honor the grief. It is appropriate, and it is the natural response to a real loss. But underneath the grief, something is searching for what the performance promised and never delivered. Genuine belonging, genuine growth, genuine guidance that does not require surrendering your own knowing in order to receive it. They are not looking for a new authority to follow. That template has just been burned down in front of them, and no amount of polish will make it appealing again. What they are looking for is something far more specific, a person who has been through a version of exactly what they just went through, who came out on the other side with their integrity and their gifts intact, and who does not need to perform certainty because they have actually earned it. They are looking for someone whose authority comes from surviving the fire, not from claiming proximity to something divine, but from demonstrating what surviving real opposition actually produces in a person. That description fits you precisely. It fits no one who was not in the fire. That search is pointing toward you. We will get there. Here is the center of everything. Everything that came against you, the interference, the manufactured obstacles, the engineered exhaustion, the targeted disruption of your healing and your rising, was, at the most fundamental level, preparation, not punishment. Preparation. That word can land wrong, so let me be precise. The deliberate harm directed at you was not good. It was not justified. It was not something you deserved. Full stop. What the preparation produced, though, is your response to it. The specific way your dragon moved under sustained pressure, created something that cannot be purchased, studied into existence, or manufactured by any external means. Before all of this, you had gifts. After all of this, those gifts became precision instruments, forged in the specific fire of this specific experience. The capacity to stand in a space full of people who have been deceived and offer something so genuinely true that the deception becomes retroactively visible by contrast. That is not a skill acquired through study. That is a condition that develops only one way, by having been inside the deception, navigating back to truth from within the fog, and holding your integrity through every moment of that transit. Sustaining the suppression of something genuinely powerful is not a passive act. It is an active, ongoing expenditure of real energy, as the effort to hold you down consumed more and more of the finite capacity available to this person. The performance they were maintaining started thinning, showing wear at the edges, requiring more and more maintenance to keep the surface looking like the real thing. Your refusal to be suppressed was not just your victory, it was part of what accelerated their exposure. The energy spent trying to keep your light from fully igniting was energy not available to protect against the documentation quietly accumulating. You being impossible to hold down was the distraction that allowed the evidence to build. The exposure of this person did not just remove a harmful force from your community, it created a vacancy, a very specific vacancy, for something authentic to occupy the space where something false had stood. Every community that moves through what yours is experiencing right now arrives at the same question: where does the genuine need go now? Where does the real thing live? The answer is you. It was always you. The opposition simply spent a long time ensuring you did not know that yet. What is happening right now is not a scandal in the ordinary sense of the word. What is happening is a correction. The correction is mathematical, precise, impersonal in the way that gravity is impersonal. It does not require your management, your prayer, or your intervention. It simply operates, restoring balance in any system that has been deliberately thrown out of balance. And when the imbalance was extreme and sustained, the correction is equally thorough. What was extracted from you, the vitality perpetually running in deficit, the creativity that kept stopping just short of full expression, the momentum that would build and then stall without explanation, that extraction is over. The source of the drain has collapsed, and your system is going to begin doing something that might feel unfamiliar at first. It is going to begin filling, steadily, not rushing, not flooding, the steady filling of a well once the thing emptying it has been removed. You will feel it in your body first, then in your clarity, then in your creative output, then in the connections that always felt just out of range, suddenly becoming reachable. That is not coincidence. That is correction arriving in your direction. Now consider the status question directly. The standing this person held in the community is not damaged. It is gone. Status built on performance rather than genuine authority does not recover from full public exposure. The specific mechanism that made that status function, the credibility, the deference of others, the community's willingness to let their word settle disputes, that mechanism is permanently disabled. Every advantage that status gave them over you has dissolved with it. The access they held that you were denied is gone. The ability to shape the narrative about you with borrowed authority is gone because the authority required for that no longer exists. The playing field has not simply leveled, it has tilted, and it tilted toward you. While the rubble of a collapsed reputation is being managed on one side, you are standing on everything you built, proved, and survived. Consider also what the cleared landscape now makes possible for you in practical terms. The conversations that were being quietly shaped against you, the ones placing a particular version of your name in the wrong ears, those conversations have lost their source. The people who were receiving that framing are now reassessing everything they received from that source. That reassessment includes what they were told about you. Some of them are going to reach out. Some of them are going to look at you with entirely new eyes. Some of them are going to recognize retroactively that the resistance they once felt toward you was manufactured, planted specifically to keep them from discovering what you actually carry. That recognition is arriving now, and it is arriving in your favor. You did nothing special to make this happen. You held your integrity. You kept moving. You refused to be broken. The accounting does not require your management. It only requires your continued presence, and you are here. Here is the moment the entire arc has been building toward. The dragon, the thing you have carried since before you had words for it. The thing that made you a target. The thing that was compressed, redirected and suppressed for as long as the machinery running against you retained power. That machinery no longer has power. Everything sent against you, every obstacle, every drain, every manufactured crisis was fuel. You were converting opposition into energy the whole time without fully understanding that was what was happening. The stubbornness that would not let you abandon your purpose, even when abandonment made logical sense, that was the dragon refusing to be still. The creativity that kept finding angles when every obvious door was closed, that was the dragon navigating by its own light. The insight that kept arriving in the middle of the most difficult seasons, that was the dragon that could not be fully extinguished, even under sustained pressure. It was never gone, it was never diminished, it was gathering, and now, with the opposition exposed, and the atmospheric weight of sustained interference finally lifting, the dragon has space, real space for the first time. What that space produces is not a gradual return to baseline. It is not a slow warm-up. It is a sudden, almost disorienting experience of your own full capacity. Gifts that were operating at a fraction of their actual output are suddenly running fully. Clarity that was perpetually obscured is suddenly sharp. Opportunities that were always just beyond reach are suddenly within it. The people in your orbit are going to notice before they can name what shifted. Something is different, they will say, and they may not be able to articulate it further than that. But they will feel the dragon unbound, moving at its actual velocity for the first time, not performing authority, but carrying it, not manufacturing warmth, but radiating it from the fire inside. And the community that just lost its false center is going to encounter you in this state, not someone with a polished presentation, but someone who has been through the specific fire that produces the specific understanding this specific moment requires. You were prepared for this assignment before the assignment existed. That is not irony, that is design. What was stolen from this community, the language of purpose, the framework of genuine growth, the real possibility of belonging to something that does not require self-betrayal, is not discredited simply because the vessel that corrupted it has collapsed. The need those things speak to is untouched. What is broken is the specific container that was weaponizing them. Broken containers get replaced, and what you are is the replacement that was being prepared the entire time. Here is what you are going to build, not a replica of what fell. Something that never existed before, a gathering that does not require anyone to outsource their own wisdom in order to belong, a space where the internal alarm is honored as data, not punished as disloyalty, a place where genuine growth is the actual measure, not adherence to a single authority, but the visible, tangible expansion of each person's own sovereign capacity. That is the new world. It is built one honest interaction at a time. Let us close the circle completely. In the opening, the image offered was this: you carry something. There is a pressure from the inside, a force searching for the right container, the dragon, the gift, the thing you were born holding. Here is the truth everything has been moving toward. The container is now ready. The force that was building inside you, held under compression, forced through fire, proved under every condition they could manufacture against it, finally has a world shaped to receive it, not shaped by accident, shaped by the same sustained pressure that was shaping you all along. The person of high stature has been outed. Everyone knows what they did. The video is out. The community is awake. The false center has collapsed. The grief is real, and the awakening underneath the grief is realer. And you, chosen one, targeted before you understood why, surviving every piece of what was sent, keeping the dragon alive through all of it, you are standing at the threshold of something the world has not seen yet. Not a replacement for what was, something entirely new, something only you, with everything the fire made in you, can bring into existence. The dragon is free, the new world is born. Go build it.